Hey everyone, how the hell are we doing? We are here to talk some Bond. James Bond, 60 years of Bond to be specific. An incredible milestone. I'm still very much like a fledgling to the James Bond franchise. I will open with that. Um, Last year, actually, I did like a massive retrospective on all the James Bond films on a different channel to this. Most of which were kind of first time viewings for me in many ways, certainly towards the end of the Roger Moore era. Um, I'd never seen the Timothy Dalton films at that point, and I hadn't seen any of the Brosnan films. I had seen the Daniel Craig ones, though, at that point. Um, and, I kind of did a big retrospective watching all entries of the franchise leading into No Time to Die. And I haven't been back to the James Bond films since then because it was a huge undertaking. It was one review a week, similar to what this is going to be. But here we are, and I'm revisiting Bond probably a lot quicker than I thought I would. But Odeon cinemas, I don't think it's all Odeon cinemas actually in the UK. I think it might just be select ones. But luckily, my local is one of the select few Odeon cinemas, and they're screening all of the James Bond films because of the anniversary of 60 years of Bond. And we're going to get one each week. So I actually went to the cinema yesterday to see Dr. No, which of course is going to be the film that I'm going to be talking about tonight. And it was incredible. It was quite a packed audience as well, which is always great to see. Full of Bond fans, obviously. I don't know if people there were watching it for the first time. Maybe they were. I don't know. But what was great was at the end of the film when the credits were rolling, because it's not very long credits as well. In old school films, the credits pretty much hit and you're done in like 10 seconds and boom, you're out of there. Someone stood up and he was like, right, I'll see you all for the next 24. And it was so great. And I do hope, week to week, you are going to get more of those familiar faces there week to week. Now, I know that I've called this a review, and I guess it will be of sorts, but I don't want this to be, I'm not like the number one James Bond aficionado, and I'm not going to pretend to be. I'm not going to... Oh, hey, we got comments. Hang on. Before I start waffling on as I tend to do. Carl, how are you doing, my friend? It's really, really good to see you back. Carl writes, "Hi, Chris. Took a bit of searching, but I finally found your channel. I know you wouldn't want to talk it, but just wanted to let you know you have my support. I'm glad to see you're doing okay." Oh, thanks, man. Yeah, thank you for that. I really do appreciate that. I'm glad you found me. There's no escape now, Carl. You're in it. And of course, SeaWorld Man, yes. Thank you very much for spreading the word. I do want to say that I didn't put SeaWorld Man up to the task of reaching out to people. SeaWorld Man did that off his own back, so thank you very much. Yeah, so as I was saying, I know that I've called this a review because I guess fundamentally it kind of is, but I've already talked about all of the James Bond films ad nauseum, really in depth, all the supporting characters and the allies and the music and all the behind the scenes stuff that go into making the James Bond films. And I never like repeating, I never like retreading something that I've already done, because there's no point in that, because that's out there. At least I think it's still out there. People can go and find that if they choose to. I won't direct you to it, but it is out there to watch. Maybe some of you in the comments already watched the videos that I'm talking about. So really, and this is probably going to be really short in all honesty, because it's going to be really my opinions of seeing the film on the big screen. And if my opinions have changed on it, maybe my opinions, maybe I like the film a lot better having seen it on the big screen compared to, only seeing it on TV or on the small screen. Maybe my opinions may have soured on this particular Bond film, or maybe they've just kind of stayed the same as they always were. Because I will say before I get into it, there were a lot of new things that I noticed in the film. Obviously when a film is blown up that size on the big screen, you do pick up a lot of more stuff. And that's why I love going to see these older films at the cinema, because it is like discovering them for the first time. And you kind of put yourself in that headspace of what it would have been like for audiences to see Dr. No all the way back in 1962. Before I get into I'm going to call it a review now. I just said I wasn't going to call it a review, but I don't know what else you would call it. Please do subscribe to the channel for more movie reviews, trailer reactions, discussions, and live streams. I do kind of make these videos as and when I want to now, just when the mood takes me. There isn't really a defined schedule, but I do jump on. If it's something I want to talk about, I'll absolutely jump on for it. But what will be regularly scheduled programming are these James Bond reviews. I'm going to keep calling them reviews now. I wish I hadn't said that they're not really going to be a review. Talks, discussions, whatever you want to call them. Now, I am doing this on a Wednesday, but I do intend to do these every Tuesday, which is when the films are going to be screened at the cinema. So as soon as I'm out of the theatre, I'm going to head back, I'm going to create a live stream, and I'm pretty much going to talk about them. So it's fresh in my mind and my immediate opinions are out there. So yeah, it'll be probably, I guess, maybe 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. I'll let you guys know. And that's going to be every Tuesday for, well, shit, I guess the next 25 weeks. It's absolutely insane. And of course, I do actually have Twitter now, which I'm a lot more vocal on than perhaps I have been in the past. And to find me on Twitter, you can find me at Hobbit Fan Editor. That's at Hobbit Fan Editor. And you get a bit more behind the scenes stuff now. If I'm watching a movie or, you know, throwing something up there, any trailers or any points of discussion that I'll throw up. And of course, letting you guys know when I'm actually going live, you can find it on there. So there's all kind of content. And as I said, I'm going to be doing these for like the next probably 25 weeks. I'm undecided whether to go and see the Daniel Craig ones because they are still pretty fresh. But I mean, I guess if I've reviewed every single one up until then, and you guys want to see more, I'll probably go and see them all because I'm OCD like that. And of course, I want to open this question to you all as well. And I've just got a notification that Carl Roberts is now following me. Thank you very much, sir. I do really appreciate that. I'm going to open this question to everyone. Maybe you're a James Bond fan. Maybe you're not. Maybe you just tuned in to listen to me prattle on for the next, I don't know how long. But what is your favorite James Bond film and who is your favorite Bond? Who is your favorite actor, portrayer of the James Bond character? I can already tell you what my favorite James Bond film is, and it's License to Kill. I'm already counting down the weeks before I can see License to Kill on the big screen, but because it's the second and final Timothy Dalton film, I've got to wait a good few weeks, months even, months and months before we get to that one. But I'm very much looking forward to that nonetheless. Yeah, so, you know, just talking about this film in general, as I said, I'm not going to go into like the whole behind the scenes and everything. You know, there are podcasts, there are channels specific to James Bond that go into all that information. This was just, I was really looking forward to seeing this on the big screen, actually. Now, Dr. No before this point was never one of my favorite James Bond films. Obviously, it's held in high regard because it fundamentally is the first one. And although they pretty much didn't get the formula down, I would say until Goldfinger in 2 films' time, there's an undeniable charm about this film that I was really looking forward to seeing again. And first off, I mean, we've got to talk about Sean Connery, right? I mean, the guy is an absolute hero. That he exudes swagger and charm in this film. And you know, the older James Bond films, I always get a kick out of because, you know, they're very tongue-in-cheek, they're very silly, and I actually think films such as Quentin Tarantino's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood has given me more of an appreciation for those kind of films, for the more tongue-in-cheek kind of films, and that love of cinema. Bit of a tangent, but do you remember that scene in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood where Sharon Tate just like sits down in the movie theater to watch her own film? And it's like old school. I don't know. Since that film, I've had more of an affinity for older films like this that are very theatrical, I would say, you know, that those old-timey films again, you know, from the 60s. So I was looking forward to going to see this one and, you know, about to undertake this massive 25-week mammoth that it's going to be rediscovering these films. I did want to go back to the James Bond films, but I didn't anywhere near intend that it was going to be this quick, you know, in the month of April. And you know what? I enjoyed this film a lot more than I have done before with Dr. No. I still do think it has some pacing issues, specifically towards the end. You know, when they get to the island and he meets Honey Rider, it slows a little bit there. It does, and it doesn't have quite that punchiness to it that the films had before that point. But like, I was noticing things that I'd never noticed before with this film. And granted, you know, I haven't seen this film loads of times before this point. I think before seeing it on the big screen, I think I'd seen it twice. So, you know, I'm not one of these, as I mentioned, Bond aficionados that knows the name of every single supporting character and actor and gadget and everything for each Bond film. You know, I'm still very new to it, but it is a franchise that I appreciate. Number one, like chief among them, was the picture quality. Now, I'm assuming these are the like Blu-ray editions they made, where you know they probably upscaled them and cleaned them up a little bit. I actually think the 4Ks might be being released later this year. But as soon as the film started, the quality was undeniable and it was fantastic, especially when you get to the island at the end and the colors are so vibrant. You've got the sandy beaches. You know, it's the iconic image with Ursula Andress on the beach. And it's so vibrant and it looks amazing. It looks so cinematic and great. And, you know, I was on Twitter earlier and I was seeing some people, you know, talking about the Bond films who were also rediscovering them and, you know, watching them on the big screen, saying that a lot of discrepancies that they had seeing it on a small screen, such as, you know, the day for night shots, they didn't have a problem with them seeing them on the big screen. It looked like nighttime. I don't know if I'd go that far. They still do look like day for night, but they do look a darn sight better. And probably one of the most iconic images from this film is the rear projection. You know, the scene where Sean Connery's, it's the car chase and, you know, he's just jerking the wheel around like this and he's not actually driving and it's, you know, like the rear projection behind it. It doesn't, I mean, it still looks like rear projection. Of course it does, but it doesn't look as bad seeing it on the big screen play out. And obviously you've got the sound system as well, you know, you know, the James Bond theme kicks in. It's always awesome to hear that, you know, that theme, especially when it kicks off. And then there's that abrupt cut in the intro, isn't there? There's no sort of like official Bond theme for this film, you know, like no Shirley Bassey or Tom Jones or whoever it happens to be. They hadn't done that, and they don't really do that, I would argue, until Goldfinger. I know you could argue that you've got From Russia with Love, which is a song that features in the second film, but it's not really like your main opening Bond theme. So you start off with, you know, the Monty Norman Bond theme, and it's great. And then it just abruptly cuts off and you get this calypso version of Three Blind Mice. And it is part of the charm of it, you know, it is part of the identity of Dr. No, which I really appreciate. But I'm going to pass over to like you guys in the comments. Have you seen Dr. No before? Are you James Bond fans? Are you watching these films at your cinema? Actually, we've got a comment from Carl right here who says, unfortunately, my local cinemas aren't showing the James Bond films, but they're on Amazon Prime now, so I can watch them there. Okay, that's good. That's good. Yeah, I don't know why. I mean, I'm assuming that, is it an Odeon cinema that you've got local to you? I did hear that, you know, some Odeon cinemas aren't doing it, so I don't quite know why that's the case. You know, if Odeon have the rights to screen the Bond films, then why not do that in every single Odeon cinema? I don't know. I don't know if it's a question that some Odeon cinemas might not have as many screens as other Odeon cinemas. And if you've got recent films coming out like Fantastic Beasts or, you know, what other films are out at the moment, you know, Doctor Strange in a couple of weeks, maybe they have to prioritize those screens for those films and don't have the space to play older films. I will say, actually, I'm very lucky. My local Odeon is doing a lot more of that recently with older films. I think they're having a Paul Verhoeven month at the moment. On Monday next week, they've got Basic Instinct. I think they're playing Showgirls. RoboCop, which I really wanted to get to RoboCop in a couple of weeks' time, but unfortunately, I'm going to be at work that day. I work late on a Monday, and Monday is the only day that they're playing RoboCop, which has absolutely killed me because it's almost a sold-out screening. They're playing Total Recall, which I've already seen at the cinema before, and they're also doing Starship Troopers, which I've never seen before, and I've booked tickets to go and see it. So if you guys want to see it, I might jump on for a Starship Troopers review sometime next week. Just let me know if you guys want to see that. But yeah, jumping back to Dr. No, and this is something that I did notice on the smaller screen version anyway, but it was just kind of reaffirmed to me for the big screen version, is when you have Ursula Andress's character of Honey Rider. Now, I didn't know that she was dubbed. The first time that I watched the film, I had no idea, and probably even the second time that I watched it, and it wasn't until I was preparing for, you know, the series of retrospective reviews that I did last year, where I read that her spoken dialogue was dubbed by Nikki van der Zyl, who's uncredited in this film. And I believe that Nikki went on to dub a whole bunch of other characters as well within the first few James Bond films as well. and it's absolutely seamless. Watching it on the big screen, sometimes, if there's some clunky ADR here and there, you can really notice it now. Because most of these films, when they came out, they would have been out on VHS, they'd have been out on home video. We've got DVD now, we've got Blu-ray. But even then, you're watching it on a much smaller screen, so you might not be able to pick up on things like ADR, because it's usually hidden pretty well. But there's no escaping it when it's on a cinema screen. So I was expecting to see a lot more of that, but there were no discrepancies in it at all. So absolutely fair play to Nikki Van der Zyl and the team behind the dubbing of this film, because it's absolutely on point. If you didn't know that Ursula Andress was, Swedish and had, like a Germanic accent to her, you would never, ever know. And I think her singing voice was also dubbed. Here we go. Diana Copeland did the singing voice as well. But it fits absolutely seamlessly. And I mean, what an image. Jesus Christ, Ursula Andress in this film is just an absolute knockout. And there are some bits about the character of Honey Rider that I completely forgot, even from watching it last year. The bit where she's having that, that back and forth with Bond. She talks about a past experience that she had where I think her father was killed. It may have even been before this point, and she says someone basically took her in and pretended to be really friendly with her, then got a bit too friendly, and it's implied that this guy forced himself on her. And to get her own back, she got like a deadly tarantula, and it bit him. And she says something like it took weeks for him to die. And she just, that's a great first date discussion right there, isn't it? And Bond just looks absolutely mortified. I didn't remember that about her. So I got a good laugh about that. I really did like that interplay between the two of them. And as I said, she just looks like an absolute knockout. She might not be my favorite. In fact, I can quite honestly say she's not my favorite Bond girl. But as an image of the Bond girl persona, I honestly don't think you can do better than Ursula Andress. It's so iconic to this film. Comment from Carl right here. I have an Odeon multiple Cineworld showcase view near me. Not one of them is showing the Bond films. I must be unlucky, but I look forward to the retrospective reviews. I mean, fair play to you. You've got your fair share of pickings there for cinemas to go and see, but that's absolutely crazy that none of them are screening it. I haven't checked to see if it's only Odeon that are playing these films. I believe it is. I could be wrong, but I don't think any other ones are playing it. So maybe Odeon have exclusivity rights to them. I'm not sure. But they're at my local anyway. I don't know if this is kind of worldwide. I don't know if it's nationwide, but they're playing every Tuesday at my local. So that's kind of going to be the day I think I'm going to assign for these reviews. Other things that I noticed, some kind of little discrepancies here in the filming and stuff that I hadn't noticed before, but again, nothing escapes the big screen. The use of jump cuts within the film. There's quite a few of them actually in the film that I noticed, and I heard someone to the left of me mention the film jumped then. And I think it's when the secretary shot at the beginning by the, I think it's the, is it the three blind mice guys that come in and shoot her? I'm trying to remember. I believe it is. And right before they pull the trigger, there's a jump cut, and then she collapses to the floor. But this is why I love older films, because I love bits like that. You never get that in a film now. Films are pretty much seamless now when they come out, because they're really polished. They've got more of a budget. Filmmaking has advanced so much from the 60s. But I love the charm to it, and I think that's why I love 80s films above all. 80s and before, even to some respect the 90s films as well, but certainly 80s. 80s is my jam, and before that point, I love all the tricks of the trade they had to do. There's bits in this like where the secretary gets shot, as I mentioned, the use of a jump cut, and then she's on the floor, and there's this really, really unconvincing red blood, and it looks like stage blood. But I love that. The editing in this film is very strange, though, and the pacing. But I think this is more of akin to films of the 60s like this. You'll get a scene of exposition, or you'll get the information that you need, and then it will crossfade into the next scene. And then you might have a 30-second dialogue scene that advances the plot, crossfade into the next scene. And there's so much of that in this film. And that's not a fault of the film, because I genuinely believe that that's how most films were made in the 60s. And that's just how, they were very economic with the time, essentially, and how it progressed. But, I've talked about the music as well, just that Bond theme when it kicks in. There is a great bit of music, though. And this again was another scene that I feel was heightened seeing it on the big screen. There's a scene where Spectre put this I've forgotten his name, Professor, I think it's Professor RJ Dent, I think that's the character's name. Spectre give him a tarantula in a cage and say, go and plant this in Bond's room. And there's this bit where Bond's sleeping. He isn't aware that there's a tarantula in the room, and he's sleeping, and this thing is like just crawling up his arm, and Connery's just staring at this spider. And I've actually woken up sometimes before where there's a spider in my room, and you're like, oh shit, and it's like right there. But this thing looks terrifying on the big screen. I'm pretty sure it's a real spider they used. I mean, when it's crawling on Bond, I didn't know if they used like an animatronic of some kind. It looked real. And it is really tense, and the music's great, and it sounds very Hitchcockian in that moment. And the moment that the soundtrack synchronizes, where he kills the spider and he just like smacks it, and you get like this dun 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 in the soundtrack, and it was so loud as well. The soundtrack, it was great, and that's what you want when you go and see a film at the cinema. You want a good sound system. So yeah, picture quality and sound, fantastic. And it is nice going back to these films, especially like the earlier James Bond films for me. I would say from Dr. No all the way up until License to Kill, I think you can I know there's different phases, and you've got the 60s and the 70s into the 80s, but there's that loose continuity between those films. And I think you can look at it as like different eras of Bond, where I would say you've got Dr. No all the way up until License to Kill, and that's kind of one block done. Then I would say the Brosnan films kind of have their own era and own identity as well. And then the Craig ones now, especially now that we've seen No Time to Die. I mean, I'm assuming that everyone in the comments has seen No Time to Die. We literally have a beginning, middle, and an end for the Bond character in a very... well, we'll get onto the review with that when we get back onto No Time to Die, but it's a complete package, essentially. It was made as a soft reboot, and there's very much a definitive end to No Time to Die. I'm just going to have a sip of my drink. It's not a vodka martini, although I could make one, but I was too lazy to. So I've got whiskey, although it is a Scottish whiskey, and Sean Connery is Scottish, so I'm counting that, and the Bond character Scottish as well. So. But, going back to these earlier Bond films as well, I love the interplay with Moneypenny. I always have. Lois Maxwell as Moneypenny. She is my favorite Moneypenny. I don't think she can be topped. And, she made so many as well. And not just her chemistry that she has with, Sean Connery, but all the Bonds that she was in, especially when we get to Roger Moore as well, the interplay there. And they kind of downplay her to a point. But as the films go on, but it's always great to see Lois Maxwell as Miss Moneypenny. It always gets a smile. I'm trying to think what else to talk about Dr. No. The Dragon. This isn't structured, by the way. This is just kind of stream of consciousness. The Dragon is one of my favorite vehicles in Bond, and I don't think it gets talked about enough, at least not from what I've seen. You always get like the Lotus Esprit, the Aston Martin, all the major cars from Bond. And no one talks about the Dragon in terms of vehicles. And I know technically it's not a Bond vehicle, it's a villain vehicle, but it looks so goddamn cool. I love it. And, it's built up, and it's, this folklore, this legend, there's a dragon on the island, and it's got two blinding eyes, and it breathes fire and everything. And you see this thing, and it looks like a goddamn robot from Robot Wars. I'm expecting, like Craig Charles to like narrate this thing as it rolls out. It looks like one of the house robots, like Sir Kill-A-Lot or something. It looks amazing. And the way that poor old Quarrel as well just gets absolutely annihilated by this thing instantly. It's a shocking death. It's a very shocking death. And, especially for 1962 as well. I did a little bit of reading on the film and, the screenplay and everything. I don't know if it was a choice of the director, but they said that, with the risque material in the film, with the sex and, the gambling and the drinking and the violence in it as well. I mean, our tolerances by 2022 standpoints are way, way different to what they would have been in 1962. I imagine that a lot of this stuff would have been way more shocking and much more controversial. But they said by adding that humor into it and that underlying tongue-in-cheek quality to it, it almost makes it seem a little bit more palatable. And there was a one-liner in this film, for example, that I completely forgot, where it's right after the car chase and the hearse goes off the cliff and it randomly explodes. And Bond just kind of looks over the side and he says, like, "Oh, I think he was on his way to a funeral." And it's not one of Bond's best one-liners. It did it even get a smile out of me? I don't know. I can't remember. I think I just rolled my eyes at it more than anything. But it's all part of the charm of it, you know? Oh, God, what else can I talk about this film? I actually do want to know how James Bond got back home. I'm assuming that Felix Leiter didn't leave him at the end. You know, he says, like, "Oh, we need a tow," and Felix ties the rope to Bond's boat. And it's how a lot of the Bond films tend to end, especially when you get to the Roger Moore era. It's always, you know, Q or M or someone discovering Bond as he's like halfway through sex with a Bond girl, like, and they call it and they go, "Oh, that's Bond," you know, wink at the audience pretty much. And yeah, the Bond kind of undoes the tie and is just left cast adrift in the ocean. I'm assuming that Felix stuck around. You know, he wouldn't just abandon him, I suppose, but that did make me laugh. There was one part of the film that didn't make sense to me, and maybe I missed something in the film. And if someone's seen Dr. No a whole bunch of times, maybe they can sort of explain it to me a little bit more. It's where they're apprehended by Dr. No himself, and they're taken to the base, and they're led into this room, and she says, "Your room's through here. We've got fresh clothing here. We've prepared breakfast for you. Dr. No would like you to sit with him for dinner, and all of this. Enjoy your stay." Bond starts pouring the coffee, and he says the room's wired for sound, and he pours a coffee as well for Honey Rider. And they sip it, and then she says it's been drugged, and she passes out, and then Bond passes out. And then I was expecting Bond, and I mean, I've seen the film twice, so I should know what happens. I was expecting then Bond to wake up, and he's in a jail cell somewhere, or he's like strapped to a chair, and he's talking to Dr. No at the table. And that doesn't really happen. Sorry, I was just reading the comment coming through there. That doesn't really happen. So they both get drugged, and then they wake up in the same room, and the woman who just showed them to the room is in there, and she says, like, "Oh, yeah, like, you need to meet him for dinner now." It's like they were going to anyway. Why did you need to drug them? So maybe I missed something there. If you guys have seen the film or can correct me, please do let me know. But it was weird. It was like, well, why did you drug them? They were willing. They were going to have an audience with Dr. No because they needed to get more information on it. They needed to stop him. Why drug them to then wake up in the same room and do exactly the thing they were going to do before they were drugged? I didn't understand that part. So maybe I missed something there, a line of dialogue or something. And then obviously we've got Joseph Wiseman as well as the villain of this film, Dr. Julius Snow. Quite a cool looking villain. It's the first Bond film, so the seeds are there for the more costumed and ridiculous and weird and wonderful Bond villains that we get as we go through all the films, as we work through the retrospective. Kind of insensitive now. I don't think you would cast probably a Joseph Wiseman in a role like this. This half Chinese villain, he's played by a white guy, and it almost does look like he's got scotch tape on his eyes. And, he looks like a Thunderbirds character, how they've made him up. He looks like a puppet. And I'm like, this wouldn't fly. But it was 1962. It was a different time. It was, different way of making films. I'm not saying it was a good thing, but it is a thing. And, he's got these cool hands. The villains that have a gimmick are always the Bond villains that I appreciate a lot more. And he's got these, metal hands. He's lost his hands to radiation. And he shows Bond that he, like, grabs this, I don't know, is it like a paperweight? Or there's something on the table, maybe a bit of, like, I don't know, like a pot or cutlery or something. I can't remember what he grabs. And he crushes it in his hands to show Bond the power that he has. But then the hands never really come back into it. And I think that was a really cool gimmick. And I would like to have seen those used more maybe in the final fight. I mean, the hands kind of are instrumental as to how Dr. No loses and dies. He's sinking into this boiling water, and, he's trying to reach up and his metal hands can't grab. Although we did see earlier that they can very much grab, so I don't know why he didn't really put those into full effect at the ending. But, I guess we've got to kill our main villain off. Is Doctor No sort of like one of the most famous Bond villains? I mean, I guess by namesake alone from the film, he probably is. But I don't think he's as memorable as a lot of the other villains that we get. And with this film, and where my review of this film really lies, is that I do have an appreciation for this film. I do think it's enjoyable. I do think the pacing does get particularly slow towards the end once they hit the island. But it's the seeds of everything. This is the first one. It hasn't quite found its footing yet. All the ingredients are there, but they haven't been made together in the perfect meal yet. And I think that arguably we get that once we get to Goldfinger as your more standard, what you come to expect from a Bond film. That being said, next week From Russia with Love probably is one of my favorite Bond films, so I'm very, very much looking forward to seeing that one. And I think in terms of Bond being a spy, these earlier films, certainly the first two, this and especially From Russia with Love, that is Bond at his peak being a spy, certainly for the Sean Connery films, I would say. And I love that side of him, especially once we get to the next one. I think that's probably the best sort of spy Bond that we get. An argument could be made later on from when we get to Timothy Dalton, which, again, is probably one of the best examples. Some may even argue the best example that we have as Bond. Comment from Carl right here. And I think this is the question that's on everyone's minds at the moment in the Bond community. Who would you pick to play the next James Bond? That is really tough. Really tough. I do think we're going to get an answer this year. It is the 60 years, 60th anniversary of Bond. They're screening all the films. I guarantee that they will announce who the new Bond is this year. I mean, so many names are thrown out, aren't they? I see Tom Hardy is on every list, and Tom Hardy wouldn't be a good Bond, in my opinion. I've seen Cillian Murphy, and a lot of these I think are really pertaining to whatever's popular at the time. Peaky Blinders has finished recently, so of course everyone's throwing out their names there. I know that Richard Madden's been thrown out there, and having seen Eternals, which was a terrible film, but he was fantastic in there. See him in 1917, and of course Game of Thrones, which is probably what he's most famous for. I do think an argument could be made that Richard Madden could do it, and it would be taking it back to its Scottish roots as well, with a Scottish actor playing Bond. Visually, he might not be the best actor in the world, but visually, and having seen the guy in person, I've always said Henry Cavill. I really genuinely believe that Henry Cavill could pull it off. And also I think it would be cool to have him in there because he will have done all the spy franchises pretty much at that point. He was the villain in Mission Impossible Fallout, which I actually thought he was pretty decent in. He was in The Man from U.N.C.L.E. And if he's Bond as well, boom, that's the hat trick, of the big spy franchises. So I don't think it will be Henry Cavill. I think he's recently signed... Well, I mean, he's got The Witcher, hasn't he? And I think... I did hear that he signed up to like a Netflix... I think it's Netflix, a Netflix spy series they're doing. So if he's doing that, they're not going to have him as Bond. I think that would be kind of similar to how it was with Pierce Brosnan, where I forgot the name of the spy series he was in now, but Pierce Brosnan was in a spy franchise, and the people behind Bond and the producers really wanted him to play Bond, but they also didn't want to run him alongside that pre-existing spy series he was in, which is why it took so long to get him to play Bond. And obviously he came on board when GoldenEye was released. But anything else that I can say about Dr. No? I really do like the voice of what I'm assuming is Blofeld in this film. We get the seeds of Spectre in this film. I'm going to see if anyone is actually credited as the voice of Blofeld. I can't see him on the cast list here. I'm sure he is on there somewhere. But the depiction of Blofeld, especially in the earlier James Bond films, where you don't get a full reveal for the character, and it's just the voice or it's just the hand stroking the cat. I really like that depiction of Blofeld, and he seems so cool and collected, and posh and enigmatic, and I love that about Blofeld. And when we get him in You Only Live Twice, that is the iconic image. I'd say probably made more iconic by the likes of Dr. Evil, what Mike Myers did with the Dr. Evil character in Austin Powers. That is kind of the look that we come to expect from Blofeld. And indeed, that's kind of what we got with Christoph Waltz as well, wasn't it? Where at the end of Spectre, he's in the explosion, is he, in the helicopter crash, and then he's got the dead eye with the scar, and they make him a bit more mangled. That is the look of the character we come to expect. But I do like the earlier seeds of what they were trying to do with Blofeld before they made him this kind of grotesque character. Although saying that, we've had loads of depictions of him. You know, there's one in On Her Majesty's Secret Service. There's You Only Live Twice. So many, you know, You Only Live Twice. And then I think there's another one, isn't there, I'm forgetting? Oh, God, Diamonds Are Forever. How could I forget that one? Very bizarre. It's very loose continuity between the Bond films. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I can say on Dr. No. I think that'll pretty much do it. As I say, I don't want to kind of go into all the behind the scenes and the who's its and the what's its of these films. I've already done that. I just want to kind of get my opinions across of seeing this on the big screen. Is Dr. No one of my favorite Bond films? Absolutely not. But I can say for sure that I did enjoy it a hell of a lot more watching it on the big screen. Maybe, you know, some of the discrepancies that I've had before with some of the shaky effects, which, you know, I've never necessarily had a problem with. They're very noticeable, but I've never had a problem with it because I like that kind of filmmaking that they used to do back then. But it did look visually a lot better. The sound system was great as well. The colors were really vibrant. And Sean Connery is just awesome as Bond, isn't he? You know, that scene where he's at the table at the beginning, the reveal, the slow reveal, you just see his hands at the table or the cigarette, whatever it happens to be. And, you know, Bond, James Bond. It's so much from this film is iconic, and it all started with this one. But yeah, I think that'll pretty much do it for me on my review for Dr. No. As I mentioned, next week, not Wednesday, I'll be back on Tuesday. As soon as I've seen From Russia with Love and I'm back here, you best believe I'm going to be on a review. So yeah, it'd be great to see more of you come back next week if you enjoy hearing me talk about Bond, and not just Bond, but I'm sure there'll be some other films as well. I have been slacking off from films recently. I will say I haven't been going to see all of the new releases. You know, I've skipped out on Morbius and I've skipped out on Fantastic Beasts. Morbius more so because it looked and, you know, reviews for it were absolutely terrible, and I'm not going to waste my very valuable time now. My free time is very limited now, guys. And, you know, if I'm going to the cinema, if I'm going to see a film, then it needs to be a film that I genuinely want to see, or I'm curious to see at least. And I haven't seen Fantastic Beasts for multiple reasons. Number one, it's not a franchise I'm particularly interested in. You know, I enjoy the Harry Potter films, but I hated Fantastic Beasts 1. So boring, so dour. I couldn't tell you anything about the story. I hated even more so The Crimes of Grindelwald. And it just seems like a film that's falling apart at the seams, doesn't it? One with J.K. Rowling, you know, and then the whole Johnny Depp fiasco and the unfair dismissal of Johnny Depp and getting in Mads Mikkelsen. I don't blame Mads Mikkelsen for that. I'm sure he's a fine actor. I'm sure he plays the character of Grindelwald very, very well. And, you know, if they'd have cast him immediately off the bat, then I probably wouldn't have a problem with it. But just out of basic principle, I'm a man of principle, and I'll stand my ground. And I'm not actually. I think the Johnny Depp court case was a bit of it was on the TV today. I caught like 5 or 10 minutes of it, I think. But you know, the fiasco with that, and now Ezra Miller as well. Not to mention the lowest opening for a Harry Potter related film. I believe it opened to 43 million, didn't it? I think so. I mean, will they get the final 2 in the franchise? Does anyone care? I sure as hell don't. So I've skipped out on Fantastic Beasts, but the next big release, which I am at and I have my tickets booked for, is in 2 weeks' time, I believe, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. The Marvel content keeps coming out, and I still haven't seen Hawkeye on Disney Plus, and I still haven't seen Moon Knight, so I definitely need to catch up with that, because if I fall behind with Marvel, I am screwed. There is no catching up with the Marvel machine. So I definitely need to get on that at some point. But, you know, as much as they keep churning these films out, and I don't think they'll ever hit the heights of what they did with the Infinity Saga, I think that is kind of very much the definitive end of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, at least to me. I can't wait for Doctor Strange 2. The trailers look very intriguing. It looks great. It's a character that I think you can do so much for visually. And, I mean, the big kicker for me, the big selling point is Sam Raimi directing. So I'm very much looking forward to seeing those Sam Raimi-isms. You know, a guy who started out as a horror director, brought many horror elements to the Spider-Man films as well, name-dropping Doctor Strange within the Spider-Man trilogy. and from the trailer, by the looks of it, bringing more of those horror elements and those darker elements to Doctor Strange. I think it's going to be really interesting. So I am seeing that on the Thursday morning, which I believe is the 5th of May. So that'll be a new film review that you guys can check out. In between then, I've been trying to think of what to do with the channel. As I said, I'm kind of just, I'm trying to find my mojo with it again, trying to find my footing. But really, I'm just jumping on these videos because I enjoy making content. I enjoy talking about this stuff. I enjoy talking about films and kind of what's on my mind at the moment. And an element that I'm enjoying with this channel that I'm on now is that I kind of have carte blanche to do anything I want, say anything I want with no, not having to answer or adjust my opinions, which I actively refuse to do. I will always give my honest opinion. I'm not going to try and sugarcoat anything for whatever reason. I'm me. What you see is what you get. And that's what you're getting, whether you like it or not, damn it. So, but, I'm trying to bring more sort of like behind the scenes stuff to this as well. I've recently did my unboxing video of some of my Lord of the Rings collectibles back there, talking about the Lord of the Rings virtual challenge that I'm doing at the moment too. So, I mean, if you guys want to see more of that kind of, hate to call it a peek behind the curtain, but where it's just me like being informal, just talking about maybe what I've seen recently or catching up with you guys. Maybe we could make it a weekly thing, a bi-weekly thing or something like that, some kind of live show where you guys can just come in and we can kick back. Or I was thinking maybe about a series called a title to be confirmed, but something like movie night, maybe, where I'll announce on my social, maybe I'll put a vote out there of a bunch of films that we can watch, and I can just do get a film on and just watch it, whether it's a film that I haven't watched before or whether it's like an old favorite and I'm just watching to revisit it, something like that. I know on YouTube, and I don't want to be a complete sellout or anything like that, but I know on YouTube at the moment, what is very popular is first time watchings of films. And I don't believe for a second that half of the people doing those videos are watching those films for the first time, because half of them, I've seen one channel and it's like first time watching of Star Wars and Lord of the Rings and Indiana Jones and The Matrix and Pirates of the Caribbean and Harry Potter and Back to the Future, like basically every film in existence. And it's like, have you really never seen a film in your life? So I think a lot of them do it just for the namesake, first time viewing. But genuinely, I have many films that I still have yet to see, old classic films that I still have yet to see, and probably, popular or what's the word I'm looking for, cult following kind of films that I haven't seen yet. And I'm always looking to try and watch more films to cross them off my list. So maybe something like that, movie night. And would you guys like to see more of an edited one where you'll have the film playing in the bottom of the screen, basically like all those other channels, right? The first time viewings where it'll be me watching a film and I'll have pre-recorded that, and then you download the film, you rip the film, whatever it is, and you have that at the bottom, and I maybe edit a 10-minute video or so, 10 to 15-minute video of the highlights of me watching that film. So I could do edited content like that, or if you want to just see like a live stream like this where I'm just talking with a film on, let me know, or some kind of show where I can just catch up with you guys, because I love this. I love the engagement. I love being able to reach out to you guys, and it's been a long time based on certain things that happened. I haven't been physically able to contact you guys or let you know what's going on or where you can find me. But the important thing is you found me now, and hopefully you guys stick around. Carl says, stay you, Chris. I absolutely intend to. I'll always be me, for better or worse. This, as I say, what you see is what you get. But yeah, I've waffled on. So there's lots of things I'd like to do with the channel, but I'm still just kind of, it's a new channel, it's fundamentally. So, I'm finding my mojo with it. I'm trying to find what works and, keeping things the same that maybe I've done before, trying new things maybe in the future. But obviously I'm kind of fitting this around my own schedule at the moment. So I'm not being, I must go live at this time. I must go and see this film within this day to get a review out quickly. I'm not doing that at the moment. I've taken the pressure right off. And because I don't want you guys to see me jumping on and talking about a film that I couldn't care less about, Whenever I jump on, it needs to be a film that I'm passionate about, something that I want to talk about, or even if I don't like it, just something that I have to say about it. And I guess another question that I'll throw out to you guys as well: would you like to see the trailer reactions come back? Because I still haven't seen the new trailer to Thor. What is it? Love and Thunder or whatever it's called. Still haven't seen the trailer for that yet. So if you guys want to see a reaction to that, or get back into the reaction videos as and when big trailers come out, let me know. Let me know what you guys want to see, because I'm doing this for myself fundamentally, because I like talking about these things, but also, I mean, you're the viewers. You're watching me for the best part of 45 minutes plus. So let me know what content you want to see, or what you'd like to see me do, and where you'd like to see the channel evolve to, and we'll see what we can do. So hang in there, because we're growing. We're going to grow the channel. It's going to take a while, but I think, what are we up to right now? 14 subscribers or something? It's 14 more than I had, a couple of weeks ago. So, it's getting there. The important thing is that you guys are entertained and that you enjoy watching the content. Oh, big thing that we've got coming out soon. Obi-Wan Kenobi series on Disney+. That's going to be... I'm sure we're going to have plenty to discuss when that show comes out, aren't we? Hopefully it's good. But anyway, I'm rambling on. I finished talking about Bond like 15 minutes ago, but it's great to see, familiar faces back tonight. Carl, thank you so much for finding the channel fundamentally and watching the content as well, sticking around and commenting as usual. SeaWorld Man, you are the man. Thank you so much. And yeah, that'll do it for this review. I didn't want to call it a review. This discussion, this chat, this catch-up surrounding Dr. No, and I will be back. I might be back before then, but definitely next Tuesday for From Russia with Love, and then all the other Bond films after it as well. So thank you very much. Have a very good night, and I'll catch up with you guys soon. Take care, everyone.